Welcome back to the deep dive. We are stepping back into a conversation that we've really been weaving together for a while now.
Hmm.
It's this look at the crucial and often messy interplay between East-West philosophy, just the unrelenting demands right now of the digital present.
And how to lead through all of that.
Exactly, how to lead effectively. And today we are anchoring this entire deep dive in the recent, very personal reflections from Lóng Tíng.
And that's really important context for you to have. I mean, Lóng Tíng isn't just an author or a mentor you might hire. He's the CEO of Lóng Tíng Enterprises.
Right.
And his entire life's work really is built around what he calls the intercultural red thread. He's completely committed himself to building these active, functional bridges.
Bridges between West and East, between ancient traditions and what he calls the aggressive, instantaneous modernity.
Yeah, that's a great phrase for it.
It really is. I love the imagery he uses. He talks about his work, his philosophy, as like building a path, like a bamboo path leading toward a quiet mountain temple.
And that image just tells you everything you need to know about his approach, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's not about building some, high-speed bullet train to slam cultures together.
Joe.
It's about choosing quiet, intentional, sustained movement. It's a direct response to the exhausting speed of the world we live in.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to really unpack his most, I think, challenging and clarifying insights, especially the ones he's drawn from his experiences in 2025.
A very pivotal year for him.
It seems so. It was the year, he says, he made this conscious choice to anchor everything, his work, his communication, his strategy, in this idea of presence.
And not performance.
Exactly. Presence over performance. So we're going to dissect what that shift actually means, not just for his company, but for you, for how you can define genuine connection and authentic leadership right now.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The central conflict.
Yeah, let's unpack that because it's a tension that I think defines so much of his recent work. It's this constant, almost punishing contrast between quantitative metrics,
The numbers.
the numbers, and qualitative human impact. It's the struggle every single person trying to build something real is facing today.
It really is. It's the ghost in the machine of modern work.
Yeah.
He describes these nights after all the work is done, and he's looking at the data dashboard.
We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in those moments, the official milestones, the impressions, the clicks, the reach, all those numbers on a screen, he says they all just blur into the dark.
Until they're just distant lights.
Exactly. And that imagery is so powerful because it captures this, this inherent emptiness of raw data when it's totally divorced from any real human meaning.
It's a question every leader has to face, right?
Yeah.
Is that number on my screen the actual goal, or is it just the easily measurable but, ultimately ghostly shadow of the real goal? And Lóng Tíng really forces that confrontation. He asks, what does it actually mean to reach someone? Not as a statistic, but as a presence.
And that distinction is everything. That is the entire engine of his philosophy. Statistic versus presence.
It's a huge shift in thinking.
It is. He's challenging the very foundation of how we think about digital communication. He's asking us to look past this sort of transient update on a screen and instead to consider a moment that rests in another person's chest for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. And for him, 2025 wasn't just another year. It was the year that made this question, this qualitative question of, did I matter to a human being or just to an algorithm? It made that question impossible to ignore.
And this is where it gets really practical for you, the learner, because those genuine bridges he talks about building, they're never born from some strategic calculation.
You can't spreadsheet your way to authenticity.
Exactly. You can't plan it. You can't A/B test your way into a moment of trust. He says they come from these specific, small, and often completely overlooked human moments.
And this is the shift from strategy to something deeper. We have to look at the anatomy of what he calls a true bridge. Because it's not just about what you do, it's about who you are.
You're getting to that idea of ontology versus strategy.
Yes, exactly. We're moving into the realm of ontology, the philosophical study of being, of existence, rather than just, marketing strategy.
Okay, hang on. Let's slow down on that word ontology, because that could sound a little bit, academic. How would you break that down in a simple way?
It's the difference between doing and being. Simple as that.
Okay.
Strategy asks, what steps must I do to get a result? A clickbait title, a marketing campaign, the timing of a post. Ontology asks, what kind of person must I be for my work to actually matter? So if your content is strategically brilliant, but it's, let's say, ontologically empty, it lacks real presence, It just produces what he calls motion without meaning.
Right.
But if your internal state, your being, is anchored in presence, then the strategic moves almost become secondary. The right action it flows from the right state of being.
That makes it so much clearer. So strategy is the map, but ontology is the compass.
Perfect analogy. And the moments that really confirmed his compass was working in 2025 were these three deeply intimate encounters that, and this is the critical part, were completely invisible to any analytics report.
Okay, let's drill down into these, because this is where the theory hits the road.
It is. These three moments reveal the whole psychological mechanism behind what he's talking about.
So the first example he gives it's a profound one. A mentee sharing a truth they had carried alone for too long.
Just think about the level of trust required for that to happen.
It's immense.
Yeah. I mean, your metrics can measure how many people signed up for your mentorship program. They can track how long they watched a video lesson, but they cannot measure the emotional cost of carrying a private truth.
No, not at all.
So when that truth is finally shared, it's proof that the mentee sees the leader as a safe harbor. The connection has gone so far beyond a transaction or just consuming content.
So it's about becoming a witness, not just a guide.
That's it. It's the moment the relationship shifts from professional guidance to genuine human witness. The ultimate test of your brand, then, isn't just loyalty. It's psychological safety.
Did you create enough stability for someone to risk being that honest with you?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that connects directly to the second moment, which really highlights the intercultural side of his mission. He says, a stranger from Singapore or Seoul writing, your voice felt like home today.
That word home, that's so powerful, especially today when being globally connected can somehow make us feel more rootless.
Right. And for his voice, a voice that is explicitly trying to bridge two enormous cultural systems, for that voice to create a sense of an anchor for someone thousands of miles away.
That's real reach.
That is the true measure of reach. We, especially in the West, we think reach is about network size, how many followers.
Right, maximizing the number.
But he shows that true reach is about maximizing the depth of resonance. His work targets that universal human need to belong, to find a familiar touchstone. So when someone across the ocean hears his voice and thinks home, well, no impression count can ever capture the value of that.
It says so much about the integrity of his voice, which I know we're going to get into, but let's touch on the third example because it's maybe the most humbling one for a leader.
I think it is. A quiet follower sending a message on the exact day he doubted himself the most.
That's synchronicity.
It's the invisible feedback loop that the algorithms completely miss. You have Lóng Tíng, this figure of stability and guidance, having a private moment of profound self-doubt.
Which everyone who tries to lead honestly has.
Of course. And that invisible crisis is met instantly, not by some grand strategy, but by a quiet, personal message from the community. It proves the community he's building isn't just consuming, it's reciprocal, it's empathetic, they're giving back.
So the bridge isn't one way. He gets back to this realization that these moments, the shared truth, the feeling of home, the timely support, that's the point.
That's the pulse, the presence.
Yeah, and they travel farther than any strategy or algorithm can measure. So the foundational takeaway for you listening to this is that the bridge is never born from strategy, it's born from showing up. Consistently, courageously.
And that completely shifts the goal of engagement, doesn't it? It stops being about optimizing your digital footprint, and it becomes about anchoring your internal state. If the goal is to build something that lasts, a structure that survives the whims of trends, the building material can't be clickbait. It has to be genuine, consistent presence.
That is a perfect transition point, because the way he actually manifests this presence is through an incredible volume of content. So let's move into our second section here and focus on his practical output. We're talking about 110 YouTube videos.
Which is just a staggering number, especially for such a focused, philosophical kind of output. But the key is how he frames it, his perspective. He doesn't see those 110 videos as polished products.
Right. He immediately dismisses the idea of polish.
He does. Instead, he sees them as evidence of trying, evidence of showing up.
And that reframing is everything. It transforms this intimidating body of work from a finished product into a documentation of a process.
Yeah, a visible record of the searching, the teaching, the stumbling, and the learning all happening in real time.
And that vulnerability, that admission that you are still trying, that seems to be the very thing that builds the bridge.
It's the structural adhesive. He describes this bridge forming slowly across cultures and continents, across the invisible spaces where people meet without ever standing in the same room.
And if the content was all hyper-polished and perfect?
It would create distance. The audience would feel this huge performance barrier. They'd see a finished product they could never hope to replicate.
But because it's explicitly evidence of trying, you're invited into the process. You see the effort, the humanity.
And that's why it works across cultures. Perfection creates distance, but a shared struggle, that creates connection, no matter how far apart you are physically.
You know, it's interesting because if you look at how that evidence of trying actually shows up, it's a deliberate choice against optimization.
Say more about that.
Well, most high-performance digital content demands, rapid cuts, aggressive energy, absolute certainty in your voice.
Right, no hesitation.
None. But his output allows for hesitation. It allows for unpolished lighting sometimes. It allows for the time it takes to actually formulate a nuanced thought.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is the technology he's using.
That's a great way to put it. And we have to ground this discussion of presence in his specific expertise, which is intercultural communication.
Yes. Because presence here isn't just about being visible online. It's defined by nuance, especially in the spaces between cultural norms.
And he details this so beautifully. He emphasizes two specific areas where presence is most active. The first one is presence in the pauses between languages.
This is such a profound insight because in, say, Western business culture, we often read a pause as a weakness.
Or a lack of preparation.
Exactly. We rush to fill any silence.
We do. And Lóng Tíng is arguing that the pause is the exact opposite of an absence. In an intercultural dialogue, that pause is often a sign of intense intellectual work.
What kind of work?
Translation, interpretation, trying to synthesize a complex concept, or just showing profound respect for the weight of the idea being discussed. The pause is precisely where presence lives. It's where the space for deep understanding is being created.
So if you rush, you trample the bridge.
You trample the bridge. So teaching yourself to value the pause is teaching yourself to value the process over the speed of the transaction. And his second point connects right back to this idea of evidence of trying.
Okay.
It's presence in the tremble before an honest question.
The tremble, that's such a specific and vulnerable word choice.
It is. He's redefining vulnerability as a communication tool of the highest order. An honest question, especially one that challenges your own certainty or the status quo.
Yeah.
It rarely comes out clean and crisp.
No, it often comes with some real hesitation, the tremble.
Right. And if you, as the leader or the speaker, allow that tremble to be seen, you are demonstrating integrity in real time. You're showing that you value the search for truth more than you value the appearance of authority.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second. Doesn't showing that tremble, that hesitation, risk undermining your authority, especially in a fast-paced, competitive world? Isn't authority often built on projecting total certainty?
That's the core tension, isn't it? Traditional leadership models, yes, they define strength as invulnerability.
Right.
But Lóng Tíng's philosophy aligns with a more relational model, one where true authority is earned through authenticity. By showing the tremble, you humanize the whole process. You give your listener permission to also struggle with complex questions.
So it doesn't undermine authority, it builds trust.
Exactly. And trust is a far more durable foundation for influence than just pretending to be certain all the time.
Okay, this whole deep dive into vulnerability and process, it leads us to his ultimate and I think very provocative definition of branding.
Yeah, when we hear that word, we immediately think of logos, marketing, commercials.
Visual identity, yeah.
He strips all of that away.
Yeah.
He fundamentally redefines the concept for this age of presence. Branding, he says, is not an external shell. It's not a logo. It's not a marketing line. He defines it simply as the integrity of voice.
The integrity of voice. So if that's what branding is, what does that integrity actually involve? He gives 3 defining qualities that are, I think, essential for anyone trying to apply this. The first one is the courage to stay human.
And that goes right back to the 110 videos being evidence of trying. It means you have to actively refuse that constant, subtle pressure to become this optimized, unfeeling, perfectly calibrated digital machine.
It requires the leader to stay flawed, to stay accessible.
And rooted in lived experience.
Yeah.
The moment you start editing out your stumbles, you lose the courage to be human.
And the second quality he mentions is the willingness to show up with the same truth even when the world is asking for noise.
And the digital world is designed for noise. It's structured around manufactured controversy, novelty, shouting the loudest.
Right.
So integrity of voice is the commitment to maintain your foundational frequency, your core truth, even when it's quieter or slower or less sensational than everything else. It's the courage to refuse to be drawn into the attention economy just for the sake of being seen.
So when you put it all together, branding isn't a logo or a tagline. He says it's a relationship, and that relationship is defined by that integrity.
Which is so powerful because it elevates the whole purpose of communication from something purely transactional, like getting a sale or a click, to something transformative, which is building lasting understanding. When you look at his company, Lóng Tíng Enterprises, the brand isn't what's on the letterhead. The brand is the reputation for standing by that same truth, even when it's not convenient. That's what builds trust. And trust is the only currency that really lasts.
Okay, so let's take this philosophical structure now and bring it directly into the world of concrete action, of leadership theory. This whole commitment to presence became so central to his reality in 2025 that it was the very genesis of his book series.
That's right. The one that includes Global Leadership Insights 2030.
And the title of the series itself is The Circle of Presence.
It is, and the origin story of that series is so important here. He makes a point to say that this work didn't grow from a plan. It wasn't some market gap analysis. He says it emerged from necessity, from lived experience.
And that detail speaks directly to the authenticity we were just talking about. This work isn't just theoretical, it's him processing the hard lessons he learned in 2025 and turning them into a framework that others can use.
And the single core realization that drove the whole project, the thing he keeps coming back to, is this powerful warning for any leader today. Leadership without presence becomes motion without meaning.
That phrase is such a devastating critique of our modern results-only culture. We reward motion obsessively.
Constantly. Busyness, rapid expansion, nonstop activity.
But if that activity lacks genuine anchored presence, it's just noise. It's movement without any real substance.
And the business consequences of motion without meaning are, they're profound. You see it in high employee turnover, deep cynicism, chronic burnout.
Right.
Leaders are running so fast they're consuming massive amounts of resources, time, energy, money. But because that motion isn't rooted in a clear, present mission, it's all misallocated. It's like sailing a ship really, really fast, but constantly turning the rudder in the wrong direction.
But let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't this all a bit idealistic? In a profit and loss meeting, how do you actually measure presence against quarterly targets?
That's a fair question.
If a company is moving fast and hitting its numbers, even if the employees are cynical, the board is probably happy. So how does he argue for presence in that kind of high-pressure environment?
He argues for it based on durability. Not just spiritual benefit, but durability. The returns you get from motion without meaning are almost always transient. They fade as soon as the external pressure, the incentive, is gone.
Okay.
Presence, on the other hand, builds structures that are durable and self-sustaining. It's the difference between managing by fear of a deadline, which is motion, and leading by a shared purpose, which is presence. So the circle of presence is all about anchoring the leader in that authentic reality so the work they do actually lasts.
And that anchoring process leads to this really fascinating and vulnerable personal reflection he shares about 2025. He says that despite how difficult it was, and he's clear, the year was not easy. What surprises him most looking back is this gentleness rising in my chest.
Which is the unexpected dividend of radical honesty. He connects that feeling of gentleness not with external success or ease, but with internal truth. The year was hard, he says, because it was honest.
So the strain of maintaining a facade was just gone.
Exactly. When you're showing up as evidence of trying, you're no longer burning that massive amount of energy that performance anxiety requires. And the vacuum that's created when you drop the facade gets filled with this surprising internal peace, this gentleness.
It's almost like he's describing a physical energy exchange. He stopped using energy to hide, and that surplus energy just turned into internal calm.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it. And he walks us through the process of growth that led to that. He summarizes his experience in 3 very personal phases. He says, I grew in ways I didn't expect. Then I fell in ways I needed to.
That's a big one.
It is. And finally, I rebuild in ways that still feel tender.
Let's focus on that last part for a second. Rebuilding in ways that still feel tender? What kind of leader uses that word? Tenderness implies a kind of rawness, a vulnerability that hasn't fully hardened over.
That word is the key to understanding his new foundation. Tenderness suggests that the rebuilding isn't the cold, hard structure of a fortress. It's a living, growing thing, still sensitive to the touch.
So the vulnerability he showed all year, the visible stumbling that's now deliberately baked into the new foundation.
Yes, and it's that ongoing sensitivity that allows for real connection. If a leader becomes too hardened, they stop being able to feel the needs of the people they're trying to connect with.
It's like that Eastern philosophical idea of strength through yielding. The bamboo that bends in the wind instead of the oak that snaps.
It is exactly that, and this brings us right back to his idea of the brand. He says the connections that were formed during that honest, challenging year, and he says, so many of you walked with me. That is the brand.
The people who stayed with him through the tough times are the proof of the integrity of his voice.
Precisely. The connections define the brand, because the brand is defined as a relationship that holds under pressure. A logo is just ink. A tagline is just words. But that bond that's forged when a leader is vulnerable and the community responds with support, that's the relationship that doesn't wash away in a storm.
So if 2025 was the test and the audience stayed, that means the bridge was real.
It was tested and it held.
Okay, so having explored the foundations he laid in 2025, let's look forward. Let's look at his perspective on the future. He sets up this transition towards 2026 by contrasting the typical corporate mindset with his own philosophical approach to time.
Right. He says he sees 2026 not as a deadline, but like a doorway.
And that is such a crucial reframing. Deadlines are restrictive, they're punitive, they're all about external performance goals.
But a doorway. A doorway suggests opportunity, transition, invitation. It's an open space waiting for him and his audience to step into together.
He describes that future moment as a span of bridge waiting for footsteps, a space not yet shaped by conversation or courage.
I love that. It's such a vivid picture of the future as an active, unformed landscape. It's a void waiting for conscious creation, not just a calendar you have to comply with.
It reframes the future from something you race against to something you step into and help define.
Exactly. The work that he and you, the listener, do in 2026 is what will shape that unformed space. You're not just reacting to external pressures anymore.
And this forward-looking vision leads to what he calls his quiet vow for the coming year. It's basically a set of commitments that serve as the operating guide for his entire philosophy.
His manifesto, really. The first commitment is, I will keep walking this bridge.
Which speaks to perseverance, this work of building intercultural connections, of bridging East and West. It's never done. It's an active walk, not a destination.
The second commitment, I will keep carrying voices across worlds. This really solidifies his role not just as a creator, but as a conduit, a vessel for understanding.
He's emphasizing that the bridge is bidirectional. It's for exchange, for mutual listening. It's for ensuring that the voice that's usually not heard has safe passage.
And the third, which is the anchor for everything, I will keep choosing presence over performance.
That's the ultimate mandate. It ensures every project, every video, every book stays rooted in genuine being, rather than just strategic maneuvering for market share.
And if you, the listener, accept this invitation to walk with him, what's the promised outcome? It's not viral reach or guaranteed visibility.
No. The promise is that you can build something that lasts longer than trends or algorithms or visibility.
And that phrase is just a powerful, direct critique of our entire digital world, which is built to prioritize the fleeting, the temporary, the highly visible.
He's going for legacy, for structures of understanding that can survive when the algorithm inevitably changes tomorrow.
This ambition for legacy is the core mission statement of Lóng Tíng Enterprises, and it's defined so clearly by what it actively rejects and what it intentionally chooses.
The rejection is so clear. Building bridges not to impress, but to connect.
And critically, not to build walls of influence, but to build bridges of presence.
That's the contrast between power and partnership. Influence implies a power disparity, a desire for control.
Exactly. Presence suggests a mutual horizontal exchange, a partnership of equals. He's not building up power to tell people what to do. He's building roads so people can meet as equals.
So what are the three outcomes that come from building these bridges of presence? The first one is that dialogue breathes.
And dialogue breathes when the exchange isn't rushed, when it includes those crucial pauses we talked about, and when both sides feel safe enough to articulate the full complexity of their view. It's an organic, living conversation, not a structured debate.
The second outcome, difference becomes connection. This is so key to intercultural work. The goal isn't to eliminate difference.
No, the goal is to transform the space between the differences into a point of connection. When you build a bridge over a river, you don't get rid of the river. You create a structure that allows safe passage over it, and you celebrate both the structure and the space it spans.
So difference isn't the problem. The inability to relate across difference is the problem.
Exactly. And the final outcome, tomorrow grows from respect. This puts all the responsibility on the quality of our interactions right now to build a sustainable future. Respect is the soil. Without it, you're building a future on transactional need, and that will collapse as soon as the need is gone.
The conclusion of his whole reflection offers this deeply poetic and unifying image. It brings his entire East-West philosophy to a final, perfect point.
He asked the listener to look toward Asia at dusk, across that thin line where day exhales into night.
And that imagery of dusk, it's that perfect transitional space. It mirrors his own role between cultural systems, between tradition and modernity. It's the time for reflection, for stillness.
It's the moment we stop doing and start being. And he concludes with the ultimate synthesis of his work. This transitional space, this twilight, is the place where sound becomes silence and silence becomes understanding.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the idea of the pause, the moment of internal processing where mere data or external noise transforms into genuine, deep resonance.
It's the realization that the most important information isn't always conveyed through sound. Sometimes it's absorbed in the silence. And he leaves the listener with that powerful unifying statement, tying their personal journey to his global one. We are connected with your future.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into these really profound reflections from Lóng Tíng on the architecture of genuine connection and leadership. We've moved from the tyranny of the digital dashboard
From quantitative metrics.
to the essential, durable power of these small, human, qualitative moments.
And we've seen him radically redefine leadership. It's not about relentless, optimized performance. It's about the consistent, courageous commitment to presence.
The integrity of voice, the willingness to stay human, to accept that tender process of rebuilding, that's what forms a relationship strong enough to hold under pressure.
So what does this all mean for you today as you navigate your own dashboards? If branding and leadership are truly about relationship and integrity of voice, what personal metric, internal or external, must you let blur into the dark?
That's the question. What vanity metric on your personal or professional dashboard are you clinging to? Maybe it's a follower count, a salary number. Maybe it's the need to always have the fastest reply. What's the thing that's stopping you from building your most honest, durable bridge?
That is the essential so what. Lóng Tíng's journey through 2025 shows us that the most significant strength and unexpected comfort, that gentleness he felt, it often emerges from the most challenging, honest moments.
He gained that gentleness because he allowed the year to be hard but honest. He grew in ways he didn't expect, and he rebuilt in ways that still feel tender.
So here is the provocative thought we want to leave you with, connecting his journey directly to yours.
Lóng Tíng's philosophy hinges on this idea that difference becomes connection on the bridges he builds. If the hardest, most necessary falls of 2025 led him to an unexpected gentleness, what unexpected strength is currently hiding inside the tender challenges you are facing today?
What strength is waiting to be revealed? Simply through radical honesty. Look for the moment of silence in the middle of all the noise, because that is where the understanding and your future connection will begin.